What's going on YouTube? This your boy the Boost on a GCO, and just coming to you guys today to talk about the prices of GPUs out there nowadays and really what's going on in the gaming market. So it's going to be quite a lot of questions that we cover in here today. So stay tuned and we'll get right to it. Alright guys, so the main question here is really why are graphics cards getting so much more expensive, and the answer is actually quite simple the more you look into it. I mean, the reality is Nvidia and AMD are not making as much money as they can be making by turning their graphics card focus into deep learning and analytical things for supercomputers and things of that nature. So one of the simplest answers that your average consumer can actually go out and buy a personal mini supercomputer, and I say mini and that's a key word there, is the DGX line from Nvidia, which these computers can run anywhere from about $8,500 to $10,000 depending on the specs you actually end up choosing. So therefore, the long story short really is Nvidia and AMD are more focused on deep learning and analytics, in which they make much more money in than gaming at the current moment. So Nvidia has recently released their Volta architecture, which actually the DGX line is based on the Volta architecture. Now they've also released the Titan Volta, which I've seen some people on YouTube actually review. The graphics card runs for about $3,000. Generally you see it priced at about $3,300. Usually is what I also see on the internet. So therefore, think about it. They're turning Volta into a consumer grade card, using it for deep learning with stacked NAND memory, and I'll talk more about that later and everything. 21 billion transistors, and want to price it at $3,000 to $3,300. Whereas if they were to turn this card into its full potential and sell it to Fortune 500 companies, this card would actually fetch around $7,500 to $10,000 a piece. And of course, these companies are not buying one of them at a time, they're buying thousands at a time. So it makes a big difference, and we really kind of see where their focus is changing to go into, and exactly why they're focusing so much on deep learning, analytics, and things of that nature. So if you are Nvidia or AMD, why sell your graphics cards to the consumer that is stripped down at a loss versus just selling it for what you could potentially get in the mass market as far as the Fortune 500 companies go? Everybody is wanting to get into deep learning. I mean, it really is the way of the future. So just think back at what I said. Take the same exact card that you can sell to a company for $7,500 to $10,000 a piece, strip it down and sell it to a consumer for between $150 to $1,000+. I mean, the decision is not really that hard to make for these companies. Now, Nvidia has actually come out and mentioned the GTX 2000 series cards will actually run about $650 to anywhere up to $1,500, and they may even be more with crypto mining that's still going on and controlling the market at the moment. Earlier, I actually mentioned that I will be giving you guys an example as far as deep learning cards, what these guys actually do with them, especially with, big supercomputers and stuff. One of the easiest simulations to talk about that takes a tremendous amount of time and studies and things of that nature to actually work on is the universe simulations. So 10-15 years ago, it took nearly 14 to 15 months to actually simulate the Milky Way galaxy alone in a server or in a big supercomputer or anything like that they would use for simulations. So fast forward 10 to 15 years later, we're coming to the current point. The Milky Way galaxy takes about 6 to 8 months to actually simulate. So when you're going from 14 months to 6 to 8 months, that's actually a really big jump in deep learning and complex simulations that they're actually using these graphics cards for. So they're not really meant for the everyday user. I mean, these things are really meant for complex simulations, and that also goes for weather patterns and things of that nature. One question that we all get to see, and I've kind of already touched on this, but what drives the price of these graphics cards to go up? It's very simple: money. And sadly, that is the reality. When I say money, I mean it in more than one sense. Meaning, video games are really pushing graphics to the next level, but it is not moving at a rate that we all really think it is, or it's not moving at a rate that is competing with deep learning or anything like that. For example, a lot of things that people don't actually realize about their graphics cards is that there's no game engine in the world currently that actually uses more than 2 gigs of video RAM at any given moment. So when you see these graphics cards like the 1080 Ti with 11 gigs of RAM, what's actually happening is that they're just storing game engine data on your graphics card so the graphics card can later access it to use it quicker. But that's it. You know, some of the data that they may be storing in that video RAM may be anything like geometry data, the textures, vertices positions, shaders, and on and on. I mean, there's so many more things inside of a game that people don't even pay attention to. But the video RAM on a graphics card can basically be looked at as the same way as cache RAM, or some people may say cache. Either way, it's the same, virtually the same thing. Your processor, your CPU, actually has a little bit of memory built onto it, so that some information it can actually keep in the processor itself, so it doesn't have to fetch it to the RAM, go back and forth for the data all the time. I mean, you may notice this in programming. Sometimes you may run into an error where it says you have to empty the cache. Well, that's the reason. So you can almost think of video RAM as cache data. Now, since there's so much video RAM there, it's actually not being used for anything efficient or effective or anything like that. The easiest way to really think about this is it's just a waste of NAND technology, or DRAM, dynamic random access memory. And that's actually gonna answer a lot of the questions in the next point here. But also, one other thing it means is that you will never actually use the full potential of your graphics card, which is quite sad to say. But then again, that's the reason for all the simulations out there for the test scores that you can get with your graphics card, and all the simulations that you can run on Windows and things of that nature. That's the reason for those. Who cares that you can't use the full potential of your graphics card? And why should you care? Well, the reality is graphics cards, once again, have video RAM. Your desktop has RAM. Your CPU has a little bit of cache memory. And all of that usually uses, once again, I've already mentioned DRAM, dynamic random access memory. Now, what's actually important about this is that they're actually phasing that technology out for the preferred 3D NAND. And really, everything we almost use today actually uses 3D NAND, such as smartphones, any portable devices that have memory, tablets, some SSDs in your computer, cameras even, audio players, and so on. I mean, so many things actually use NAND technology, which is the reason why there's so much shortage for it. The big difference between NAND and DRAM is simple. You don't need constant electricity flow to actually keep memory inside NAND, which saves your battery life on your smartphones and things of that nature that uses battery. Also, you can store more gigabytes per layer by stacking the cells in NAND. So instead of having just one layer of memory, you can actually stack 3D NAND on top of each other. And with that solution, which is why they call it 3D NAND, is also the reason why you can have lower cost per gigabyte, as they can actually store more space per chip. So there's definitely a lot of benefits with NAND, and it really is the future going forward. But of course, for every new technology, which NAND is not necessarily new, but for every newly hyped technology that everyone wants to jump on, not everyone is going to be in front lines to have access to the technology. In this situation, the same exact thing is happening. So companies like Intel, Micron Technology, Samsung, SanDisk, SK Hynix, Toshiba. I mean, these are really kind of the six big companies that are in front lines for these NAND chips. What are they using it for? I mean, anything from TVs to smartphones, the Internet of Things, servers, networking, consumer electronics, high-level computing, automobiles, industrial work, and many more. I mean, I'm just naming a few just to even show how far down the list graphics cards will have to wait to actually get their chance to be next in line. So with everything that I've just told you, will graphics cards pricing go down anytime soon? Personally, I don't think so. Crypto mining just has too much effect in the market at the moment. Now, crypto mining is starting to get relegated, so it's actually getting more difficult, and certain values of cryptos are actually going down, just like Bitcoin went under 10,000 again here since this morning when I woke up and seen the news about that. And also, AMD has actually come out and mentioned how much of a change will actually happen once miners stop buying their video cards. So this was actually very daunting to me, because they actually depend a lot of their business on the miners, even though AMD and Nvidia are coming out and saying they're gamer-centric first, which, let's be honest, we know they're not. And Nvidia came out and started saying that the GTX 2000 series line will actually start at around $650 and work its way up to around $1,500. With the current mining craze that's going on, I believe these cards will actually cost more than what they're leading on to believe at the current moment. So what if you want a PC in 2018, early 2019? In all honesty, purchase a pre-built PC. CyberPower's PC and things of that nature are there. They're not overcharging for their graphics cards. They're actually selling you a full PC. Right now, those businesses actually make sense, because you may build your own computer and your graphics card may cost as much as a fully pre-built computer, or most of the price actually. So actually save some money, buy a pre-built PC, or even buy a gaming laptop. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but over the last couple of years, laptops have kind of fallen off the market radar, really. But now all of a sudden they're picking up, and it's because some of these companies have access to that NAND technology, which is taken off so fast. And with graphics cards being so expensive, it really makes sense for people to actually go out and buy gaming laptops. So a lot of it really is coming back around and making a lot more sense. But, you know, we will definitely be back and talking about more stuff. Remember, GCO means all games, electronics, and sports in one, especially with the college football season and NFL season. I will be talking a lot in that time. So, you know, comment below. I really want to know what your thoughts are about the current mining craze and the price of GPUs and what's actually going on in the market. You know, what AMD and Nvidia are telling the people versus what they're actually doing. And then, you know, comment and subscribe. Really would like to hear some ideas out there. Thank you. Peace out.